Zoe, a young black girl, extends her sandwich to Tom, a homeless white man, offering kindness right when he needs it the most. Unaware of the far-reaching consequences her small act of compassion will trigger, Zoe begins a sequence of events that no one could have anticipated. So, in what ways does Zoe's kindness transform everything? And what unexpected developments does it bring about? Stay tuned to find out. Before diving into the story, share in the comments where you're watching from today. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe. Tucked away in the center of a lively city, surrounded by towering skyscrapers and bustling streets, was a small, close-knit community that felt like its own little world. This was the home of 8-year-old Zoe and her mother, Naomi. Their humble apartment may have been small, but it was filled with warmth and love that seemed to radiate from every nook. Zoe was a bright-eyed, inquisitive girl whose smile could brighten even the darkest days. Her dark curly hair bounced with each step, and her laughter filled the hallways of their building. Naomi, a diligent single mother, dedicated all her energy to providing for Zoe and ensuring she had the best possible life. Their home reflected their strong bond. Walls decorated with Zoe's vibrant drawings, shelves filled with beloved books, and a cozy kitchen where they spent evenings cooking together. Despite the challenges they faced, their love made their little world feel whole. One sunny afternoon, as the school bell marked the end of another day, Zoe hurried out of the building with her usual excitement. Her backpack jostled against her back as she made her way to the nearby park, a place she adored visiting before heading home. The park was her favorite, a green sanctuary amidst the concrete jungle. As she skipped along the familiar path, Zoe noticed someone new, an older man seated on a bench near the playground. His clothes were worn and shabby, his beard unkempt. He sat hunched, eyes cast downward, seemingly lost in thought. Even from afar, Zoe sensed a sadness about him that tugged at her heart. Her curiosity grew, and she slowed her pace to watch him more closely. As she approached, she could hear the faint growl of his stomach. Without hesitation, Zoe reached into her backpack and took out the sandwich her mother had packed for her afternoon snack. It was her favorite, peanut butter and jelly. But seeing the hungry man, she knew she had to act. Taking a deep breath, she approached the bench. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The man looked up, surprised by the small voice addressing him. His blue eyes, though tired, held a kindness that immediately put Zoe at ease. "Yes, little one," he replied, his voice rough from disuse. Zoe extended her sandwich, a shy smile on her face. "I thought you might be hungry. Would you like my sandwich?" The man's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with emotion. He paused, looking from the sandwich to the kind-hearted girl before him. "That's very kind of you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "But I can't take your food. Don't you need it?" Zoe shook her head, her curls bouncing. "I had a big lunch at school," she lied, not wanting him to feel bad. "Please take it. My mom always says sharing is caring." The man's weary face broke into a smile, revealing warmth beneath his layers of hardship. Slowly he reached out and accepted the sandwich. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "What's your name, young lady?" "Zoe," she replied, beaming. "What's yours?" "Tom," he answered, unwrapping the sandwich reverently. "You know, Zoe, you've just made me very happy." Zoe sat down on the bench beside Tom, her legs swinging above the ground. "Why are you out here all alone?" she asked innocently. Tom took a small bite of the sandwich, savoring it. "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns," he explained gently. "But kindness like yours makes it a little easier." They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, Tom enjoying the sandwich, Zoe watching other children play. As he finished eating, Tom turned to Zoe with a grateful smile. "You're a very special girl, Zoe," he said. "Never lose that kindness in your heart. It can change the world." Zoe nodded solemnly, taking his words to heart. As the sun began to set, she knew it was time to go home. "I have to go now," she said, standing up. "Will you be okay?" Tom nodded, his eyes twinkling. "Thanks to you, I'm better than I've been in a long time." Take care, Zoe." With a final wave, she set off toward home, her heart light and her step joyful. She couldn't wait to tell her mother about her new friend. Upon entering their apartment, the scent of her mother's cooking filled the air. Naomi was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of simmering stew. She looked up as Zoe burst through the door, immediately noticing the extra spring in her daughter's step. "Hey, sweetheart," Naomi greeted, wiping her hands on her apron. "How was your day?" Zoe's face lit up. "Mom, you won't believe what happened." Naomi raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her daughter's excitement. "Oh, what's got you so worked up?" Zoe began her story rapidly. "There was this man in the park, Mom. He looked so sad and hungry. I gave him my sandwich and we talked. His name is Tom, and he said I made him happy." Naomi's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. She knelt down to Zoe's level, placing her hands gently on her daughter's shoulders. "Zoe, honey, you gave your sandwich to a stranger?" Zoe nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, he was so grateful, Mom. You should have seen his smile." Naomi bit her lip, torn between pride in her daughter's kindness and worry about her safety. "Sweetheart, that was very generous of you. But we need to talk about being careful around strangers." Zoe's smile faltered slightly. "But Mom, Tom wasn't scary. He was just hungry and alone." Naomi sighed, pulling Zoe into a hug. "I know you have a big heart, baby. That's one of the things I love most about you. But not everyone in the world is as kind as you are. We need to be careful." Zoe nodded against her mother's shoulder, trusting her mother's wisdom despite not fully understanding. Naomi looked into her daughter's eyes. "Promise me you'll be more careful, okay? If you see someone who needs help, come tell me first. We can figure out how to help together." "I promise, Mom," Zoe said solemnly. Naomi smiled, ruffling Zoe's curl. Despite their challenges, she knew she was raising a child with a heart of gold. Yet, as a mother, she couldn't shake the lingering worry about the potential dangers in the world. That night, as Naomi tucked Zoe into bed, she sat on the edge of the mattress, stroking her daughter's hair. "Zoe, I want you to know that I'm proud of you for wanting to help others. It's a beautiful quality." Zoe beamed up at her mother. "Really?" Naomi nodded. "Really. But remember, we have to be smart about how we help. There are ways to be kind and stay safe at the same time." "Like what?" Zoe asked, her curiosity piqued. "Well," Naomi began, "we could volunteer at the local soup kitchen together, or donate clothes and food to shelters. That way, we're helping people who need it, but in a safe environment." Zoe's eyes lit up. "Can we do that, Mom?" "Can we?" Naomi laughed softly. "Of course we can, sweetheart. We'll look into it this weekend, okay?" Zoe nodded eagerly, snuggling deeper into her blankets. As Naomi leaned down to kiss her goodnight, Zoe whispered, "Mom?" "Yes, baby. Do you think Tom will be okay?" Naomi paused, choosing her words carefully. "I hope so, sweetie. Your kindness probably meant more to him than you know. But remember, there are people whose job it is to help folks like Tom. We can pray for him and hope that he finds the help he needs." Satisfied with this answer, Zoe closed her eyes, drifting off to sleep with thoughts of her encounter still swirling in her mind. Naomi quietly left the room, gently closing the door behind her. She leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. The challenges of single parenthood weighed heavily on her shoulders, but moments like these, seeing the pure, untainted kindness in her daughter's heart, made it all worthwhile. As she moved through their small apartment, tidying up before bed, Naomi's mind wandered to the homeless man in the park. She couldn't help but wonder about his story. What circumstances had led him to that bench? It was a stark reminder of how fragile life could be, how quickly circumstances could change. She thought about her own struggles, the long hours at work, the constant juggling of bills, the sacrifice of her own dreams to provide for Zoe. Yet they had a roof over their heads, food on the table, and most importantly, they had each other. In that moment, Naomi felt a surge of gratitude for what they did have, rather than focusing on what they lacked. Settling onto the couch with a cup of tea, Naomi pulled out her worn notebook. In it, she kept a running list of goals, dreams, and ideas for their future. Tonight, she added a new item: find ways to give back to the community with Zoe. As she wrote, Naomi felt a renewed sense of purpose. She might not be able to change the world, but she could nurture the compassion in her daughter's heart, guiding it to flourish in safe and meaningful ways. Together, they could make a difference, no matter how small. With a contented sigh, Naomi closed her notebook and finished her tea. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities for growth and kindness. As she headed to bed, she sent up a silent prayer for Zoe, for herself, and for Tom, the stranger in the park who had unknowingly touched their lives. In the quiet of the night, as both mother and daughter slept peacefully, the seeds of compassion planted that day began to take root, promising to bloom into something beautiful in the days to come. The morning sun peeked through the curtains of Zoe and Naomi's apartment, casting a warm glow across the small living room. It was Saturday, and the air was filled with the promise of a relaxing weekend. Naomi busied herself in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, while Zoe sat at the table, her legs swinging as she hummed a cheerful tune. "What do you want to do today, sweetie?" Naomi asked, placing a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her daughter. Zoe's eyes lit up. "Can we go to the park again? Maybe we'll see Tom?" Naomi hesitated, recalling their conversation from the night before. "We'll see, honey. Let's focus on breakfast for now, okay?" As they ate, Naomi couldn't shake the nagging worry in the back of her mind. She was about to suggest they spend the day at home when a sharp knock at the door startled them both. Who could that be? Naomi wondered aloud, wiping her hands on a dish towel as she made her way to the door. When she opened it, her heart skipped a beat. 2 police officers stood in the hallway, their expressions serious. "Good morning, ma'am," the taller officer said, his voice deep and authoritative. "I'm Officer Thompson, and this is my partner, Officer Martinez. Are you Naomi Thompson?" Naomi nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. "Yes, that's me. Is everything all right?" Officer Thompson's gaze softened slightly. "We'd like to speak with you and your daughter, Zoe. It's regarding an incident that occurred yesterday evening. May we come in?" Naomi's protective instincts kicked in immediately. She glanced back at Zoe, who was watching the scene unfold with wide, curious eyes. "Of course," Naomi said, her voice tight. "Please come in." As the officers entered the small apartment, Naomi called out, "Zoe, honey, can you come here, please?" Zoe approached cautiously, her usual bouncy step replaced by a hesitant shuffle. She looked up at the towering officers, a mix of awe and apprehension on her face. Officer Martinez knelt down to Zoe's level, her voice gentle. "Hi, Zoe. I'm Officer Martinez. We just want to ask you a few questions about yesterday. Is that okay?" Zoe nodded slowly, her hand reaching for her mother's. Naomi squeezed it reassuringly. "Why don't we all sit down?" Naomi suggested, leading them to the living room. She and Zoe settled on the couch while the officers took seats in the adjacent armchairs. Officer Thompson cleared his throat. "Zoe, we understand you met a man in the park yesterday. Can you tell us about him?" Zoe's face brightened. "Oh, you mean Tom? He was sitting on the bench, and he looked really hungry, so I gave him my sandwich." The officers exchanged glances. "That was very kind of you, Zoe," Officer Martinez said. "Can you remember what Tom looked like?" As Zoe began to describe Tom, Naomi's mind raced. Why were the police interested in this man? Had something happened? Her grip on Zoe's hand tightened unconsciously. "He had gray hair and a scruffy beard," Zoe was saying, "and his clothes were kind of dirty, but his eyes were really kind, like Grandpa's." Officer Thompson nodded, jotting notes in a small pad. "Did Tom say anything to you, Zoe? Did he tell you where he was from or where he was going?" Zoe shook her head. "No. We just talked about the sandwich and how sharing is important. He told me I was special and that I should always be kind." Naomi couldn't contain her worry any longer. "Officers, what's this all about? Has something happened to Tom?" The officers shared another look before Officer Thompson spoke. "Ma'am," The man Zoe met, who we believe is named Tom, was found unconscious in the park later yesterday evening. He's currently in the hospital." Naomi gasped, her free hand flying to her mouth. Zoe looked up at her mother, confusion etched on her young face. "Is Tom okay, Mommy?" Zoe asked, her voice small. Before Naomi could respond, Officer Martinez interjected gently. "The doctors are taking good care of him, Zoe. We're just trying to understand what happened." "But why are you asking me about this?" Naomi demanded, her protective instincts flaring. "She's just a child who showed kindness to someone in need." Officer Thompson held up a placating hand. "We understand, Mrs. Thompson. We're not accusing anyone of anything. We're simply trying to piece together Tom's movements yesterday. Zoe's interaction with him is the last confirmed sighting we have before he was found." As the officers continued to ask questions, Naomi's mind whirled. She felt a confusing mix of emotions: concern for Tom's well-being, worry about Zoe's involvement, and a growing unease about the situation as a whole. Zoe, for her part, answered the officers' questions with innocence and honesty. She recounted her conversation with Tom in detail, her face lighting up as she described how happy he seemed after she shared her sandwich. "Did Tom seem sick or injured when you met him, Zoe?" Officer Martinez asked. Zoe shook her head emphatically. "No, he just looked tired and hungry. But he smiled a lot after we talked." As the questioning wound down, Officer Thompson turned to Naomi. "Mrs. Thompson, we appreciate your cooperation. We may need to follow up with you in the coming days. Here's my card if you remember anything else that might be relevant." Naomi took the card numbly, her mind still processing everything that had happened. As she showed the officers out, she couldn't shake the feeling that their lives had somehow shifted, though she couldn't quite grasp how or why. Closing the door behind them, Naomi leaned against it, taking a deep breath. When she turned back to the living room, she found Zoe looking up at her, worry clouding her usually bright eyes. "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" Zoe asked, her voice quivering. Naomi's heart clenched. She knelt down, pulling Zoe into a tight hug. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. You were kind and generous, just like we've always taught you to be." As she held her daughter, Naomi's mind raced. How could she explain the situation to Zoe? How could she protect her from the complexities of a world that sometimes punished kindness? "Is Tom going to be okay?" Zoe mumbled into Naomi's shoulder. Naomi pulled back, looking into Zoe's eyes. "I hope so, honey. The doctors are taking care of him. We can pray for him, okay?" Zoe nodded solemnly. "Can we visit him in the hospital?" Naomi hesitated. "We'll see, sweetie. For now, why don't we finish our breakfast?" As they returned to the kitchen, the cheerful mood of earlier had vanished, replaced by a tense silence. Naomi tried to maintain a calm demeanor for Zoe's sake, but inside, her thoughts were in turmoil. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Naomi found herself constantly checking her phone, half expecting another call from the police. Zoe was unusually quiet, her typical weekend exuberance dampened by the morning's events. It wasn't until early afternoon that Naomi realized they couldn't stay confined in the apartment forever. "Zoe, honey," she called. "Why don't we go for a walk, get some fresh air?" Zoe perked up slightly at the suggestion. As they stepped out of their building, Naomi noticed Mrs. Morales, their elderly neighbor, watching them from her window. The old woman's gaze felt heavy with curiosity, and something else. Was it judgment? As they walked down the street, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were following them. At the corner store, Mr. Lee, the owner, greeted them warmly, but there was a questioning look in his eyes. "Everything okay, Naomi?" he asked as she paid for a bottle of water. "Saw some police at your building this morning." Naomi forced a smile. "Everything's fine, Mr. Lee, just a misunderstanding." But as they left the store, she heard the whispered conversations start behind them. News traveled fast in their tight-knit community, and Naomi realized with a sinking feeling that the police visit was already becoming neighborhood gossip. They made their way to a small playground a few blocks from their apartment. As Zoe ran to the swings, Naomi sat on a nearby bench, her mind still swirling with worry. She watched as a group of mothers huddled together, throwing furtive glances in her direction. One of the mothers, Emily, whom Naomi knew from PTA meetings, broke away from the group and approached her. "Hey, Naomi," she said, her voice a mix of concern and curiosity. "Is everything all right? We heard there was some trouble." Naomi sighed, realizing she couldn't avoid the conversation. "There's no trouble, Emily. Zoe helped a homeless man in the park yesterday, and the police had some questions about him." Emily's eyes widened. "A homeless man? Oh my, was Zoe okay? Was he dangerous?" No, Naomi said quickly. "Zoe was fine. She just shared her sandwich with him. He was kind to her." Emily looked relieved, but Naomi could see the wheels turning in her head. "Still, you can never be too careful these days. Maybe you should keep a closer eye on Zoe when you're out." Naomi felt a flash of irritation. Zoe is perfectly safe. She did a kind thing for someone in need. Isn't that what we should all do? As Emily rejoined her group, Naomi could hear the whispers start again. She caught fragments of their conversation: dangerous, irresponsible, poor child. The judgment in their voices made Naomi's chest tighten. She wanted to stand up and shout at them, to defend Zoe's innocence and kindness, but she knew it would only make things worse. On the swings, Zoe seemed oblivious to the adult drama unfolding around her. She pumped her legs, soaring higher and higher, her face split in a wide grin. For a moment, Naomi envied her daughter's ability to find joy in the simple things, even amidst confusion and worry. As the afternoon wore on, more people approached Naomi. Some, like old Mr. Thompson from down the street, were supportive. "You're raising a fine girl there, Naomi," he said, his eyes twinkling. "The world needs more kindness, not less." But others were less understanding. Mrs. Thompson, the self-appointed neighborhood watch captain, cornered Naomi as they were leaving the playground. "Naomi, dear," she began, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I hope you'll be more careful in the future. We can't have our children associating with those types of people. It sets a bad example." Naomi felt her temper flare. "Those types of people? You mean human beings who have fallen on hard times?" "I think the example Zoe set was beautiful. She saw someone in need and helped. Isn't that what we should all do?" Mrs. Thompson's face reddened, but before she could respond, Naomi took Zoe's hand and walked away, her head held high. As they made their way home, Naomi's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. She was proud of Zoe's kindness, worried about the repercussions of their involvement with Tom, and angry at the judgmental attitudes of some of their neighbors. "Mommy," Zoe's voice broke through her thoughts. "Why did Mrs. Thompson look so mad?" Naomi sighed, trying to find the right words. "Some people, honey, have a hard time understanding kindness when it's given to strangers. But that doesn't mean we stop being kind. It just means we have to be brave in our kindness." Zoe nodded, seeming to ponder this. "I'm glad I gave Tom my sandwich," she said after a moment, "even if it made some people mad." Naomi felt a surge of pride. "I'm glad you did too, sweetheart. You did the right thing." As they climbed the stairs to their apartment, Naomi's phone buzzed with a text. It was from her best friend, Jasmine. "Girl, what's going on? I heard about the police. You okay? Call me." Naomi groaned inwardly. The news had spread even further than she thought. She knew she'd have to call Jasmine later and explain everything. Inside their apartment, Naomi felt a wave of relief wash over her. Here, at least, they were safe from prying eyes and gossip. As Zoe settled in front of the TV with her coloring books, Naomi retreated to the kitchen, needing a moment to collect her thoughts. She leaned against the counter, taking deep breaths. The events of the day played on a loop in her mind: the police at her door, the questioning looks from neighbors, the judgmental comments. It all felt overwhelming. But then she thought of Zoe, her sweet, kind-hearted daughter who had seen nothing but a hungry person in need. In a world that often seemed cruel and uncaring, Zoe had chosen kindness without hesitation. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Naomi tensed. wondering if it was more police or nosy neighbors. But when she opened the door, she found Sophia, their upstairs neighbor, holding a covered dish. "I heard you had a rough day," Sophia said softly. "Thought you could use some comfort food. It's my abuela's enchilada recipe." Naomi felt tears prick at her eyes. "Sophia, thank you. You have no idea how much this means." Sophia smiled warmly. "Zoe is a special girl, Naomi. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. What she did was beautiful." As Sophia left, Naomi felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Yes, there were judgmental people in the world, but there were also those who understood and appreciated true kindness. She called Zoe to the kitchen, and as they sat down to share Sophia's enchiladas, Naomi felt a renewed sense of purpose. They would face whatever came next together with kindness and courage. As the sun set outside their window, casting a warm glow over their small kitchen, Naomi realized that Zoe's simple act of sharing a sandwich had set in motion a series of events that would challenge them, yes, but also reaffirm their belief in the power of compassion. Whatever happened next, Naomi knew one thing for certain: she would never let the world dim the light of kindness that shone so brightly in her daughter's heart. The days following the police visit passed in a blur for Naomi and Zoe. Life continued as usual, but there was an undercurrent of anticipation, as if they were waiting for something else to happen. Naomi found herself checking her phone more often than usual, half expecting another call from the police. Zoe, for her part, seemed to have returned to her usual cheerful self. She chatted about school and her friends, but every now and then she'd ask, "Mommy, do you think Tom is okay?" Naomi would smile and reassure her daughter, even as her own heart ached with worry. "I'm sure he's getting the best care, sweetie. We just have to keep him in our thoughts." It was a warm Wednesday afternoon when another knock echoed through Naomi and Zoe's small apartment. Naomi had just picked Zoe up from school, and they were sharing a snack at the kitchen table when the sharp rap resounded. Zoe's eyes widened with a mix of excitement and worry. "Is it about Tom?" she whispered. Naomi gently squeezed her daughter's hand. "Let's find out together, okay?" Approaching the door, Naomi took a deep breath, preparing herself for whatever news might await them. She opened the door to find Officers Thompson and Martinez standing in the hallway, their expressions unreadable. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Thompson," greeted Officer Thompson. "We have some information regarding Tom that we'd like to share with you and Zoe. May we come in?" Naomi nodded, stepping aside to allow them entry. Once inside the living room, Zoe perched on the edge of the couch, her small hands tightly clasped in her lap. Officer Martinez offered a gentle smile to Zoe. "How are you doing, Zoe? Have you been thinking about Tom?" Zoe nodded vigorously. "Every day. Is he okay? Can we visit him?" The officers exchanged a glance before Officer Thompson leaned forward, his voice soft. "Zoe, do you remember how kind you were to Tom and how you shared your sandwich with him?" Zoe nodded again, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Well," Officer Thompson continued, "that act of kindness did more than just provide Tom with a meal. It helped him remember who he was." Naomi gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "What do you mean?" Officer Martinez turned her attention to Naomi. "Mrs. Thompson, the man Zoe met in the park isn't just a homeless person. His real name is Thomas Bennett, and he's been missing for over a year." Silence filled the room as Naomi and Zoe absorbed this information. Zoe was the first to speak, her voice small and confused. "But he told me his name was Tom." Officer Martinez nodded. "That's correct, Zoe. You see, Thomas had lost his memory due to a traumatic event. He couldn't remember who he was or where he came from. But your kindness, your simple act of sharing your sandwich, triggered something in his mind. It helped him begin to remember." Tears welled up in Naomi's eyes. "So he's not homeless?" Officer Thompson shook his head. "No, Mrs. Thompson. Thomas comes from a wealthy family in Boston. They've been searching for him for over a year, never losing hope that they'd find him." Zoe's face scrunched up in confusion. "But why was he in the park? Why didn't he go home?" The officers exchanged another glance before Officer Martinez spoke. "Sometimes, Zoe, When people experience something very scary or sad, their minds try to protect them by making them forget. That's what happened to Thomas. But your kindness reminded him of the love and care he had in his life, helping him start to remember. Naomi pulled Zoe close, overwhelmed by the significance of her daughter's simple act. "So what happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Officer Thompson smiled, the first genuine smile they had seen from him. "That's why we're here. Thomas's family would like to meet both of you. They want to thank Zoe for helping bring their son back to them." Zoe's eyes sparkled. "We get to meet Tom's family? Can we, Mommy, please?" Naomi hesitated, her protective instincts kicking in. "I don't know, it's a lot to take in." Officer Martinez leaned forward, her voice gentle. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand your hesitation, but I assure you the Bennett family only wants to express their gratitude. They're overwhelmed by Zoe's compassion and how it helped bring their son home." Naomi looked down at Zoe, seeing the hope and excitement in her daughter's eyes. She thought about the judgment they had faced from neighbors, the whispers and sideways glances. Perhaps this was an opportunity to demonstrate that kindness, even toward strangers, could transform lives. "All right," Naomi finally agreed. "We'd be happy to meet them." The following days were a whirlwind of preparations. Naomi fretted over what they should wear and what they should say, while Zoe was bursting with excitement, peppering her mother with questions about Tom, or Thomas, as they now knew him, and his family. On the day of the meeting, Naomi dressed Zoe in her favorite yellow sundress, the one that made her dark curls shine like polished ebony. As they headed to the park where it all began, Naomi felt a swirl of nervousness and anticipation in her stomach. They spotted the group waiting near the bench where Zoe had first met Thomas. Thomas himself looked healthier and happier than when Zoe had last seen him. Standing beside him were a couple who could only be his parents, their faces marked with lines of worry that were now softening into relief and joy. As Naomi and Zoe approached, Thomas's face broke into a wide smile. "Zoe," he called out, his voice warm with recognition. "It's so good to see you again." Zoe's shyness melted away instantly. She ran forward, stopping just short of Thomas. Thomas, you look so different." Thomas knelt to Zoe's level, his eyes twinkling. "I feel different thanks to you. You helped me remember who I am, Zoe. You're my hero." Zoe giggled, a blush spreading across her cheeks. "I just shared my sandwich," she whispered. Thomas's mother stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. "Oh, but it was so much more than that, sweetheart." She knelt beside Thomas, taking Zoe's small hands in hers. "Your kindness brought our son back to us. We can never thank you enough." Naomi watched the scene unfold, her own eyes misty with emotion. Thomas's father approached her, extending his hand. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, his voice thick with gratitude. "I'm William Bennett. What your daughter did is nothing short of a miracle." Naomi shook his hand, feeling overwhelmed. "Please, call me Naomi." And Zoe, she was just being herself. She's always had a big heart. William nodded, a warm smile spreading across his face. "That big heart changed our lives. We lost hope of ever finding Thomas, and then out of nowhere, we get a call saying he's been found, that he's starting to remember, all because a little girl shared her sandwich." As they talked, Zoe chattered away with Thomas and his mother, her initial shyness completely forgotten. Naomi watched as her daughter's face lit up with each new detail she learned about Thomas's life. "You have a dog?" Zoe exclaimed, her eyes wide. "I've always wanted a dog." Thomas laughed, ruffling Zoe's curls. "Maybe you can come visit him sometime. I'm sure Buddy would love to meet the girl who helped bring me home." Thomas's mother, who had introduced herself as Elizabeth, turned to Naomi. "We'd love to have you both visit us in Boston. It's the least we can do to show our appreciation." Naomi felt a flutter of excitement at the idea, quickly followed by a pang of worry. "That's very kind of you, but I'm not sure we can afford," William gently cut her off. "Please, let us take care of everything. It would mean the world to us to be able to show you both our gratitude properly." As they continued to talk, Naomi found herself relaxing. The Bennetts were warm and genuine, their gratitude palpable. She watched as Zoe's face glowed with happiness, realizing that this experience was expanding her daughter's world in ways she could never have imagined. As the afternoon wore on, they all settled on a nearby picnic blanket that Elizabeth had thoughtfully brought along. They shared stories, laughed together, and marveled at the chain of events that had brought them all together. "You know," Thomas said thoughtfully, "when I was lost, I felt so alone. I couldn't remember who I was or where I came from. But then this little angel," he smiled at Zoe, "showed me kindness when I needed it most. It was like a light in the darkness." Elizabeth reached out and squeezed Zoe's hand. "You reminded our Thomas that there's goodness in the world." That's what started to bring his memories back. Zoe beamed, but then her face grew serious. "But why were you lost, Thomas? What happened?" The adults exchanged glances, unsure how to explain. Finally, Thomas spoke, his voice gentle. "I had an accident, Zoe. It hurt my head, and that made me forget things. But doctors are helping me now, and every day I remember more." Naomi watched her daughter process this information, marveling at her capacity for understanding and empathy. Zoe nodded solemnly, then threw her arms around Thomas in a fierce hug. "I'm glad you're not lost anymore," she said, her voice muffled against his shirt. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, William cleared his throat. "Naomi, Zoe, we have something we'd like to discuss with you." Naomi felt a flicker of nervousness. "Oh?" Elizabeth smiled reassuringly. "It's nothing bad, I promise. We've been thinking. Thomas's experience has shown us how important it is to help those in need. We'd like to start a foundation aimed at helping the homeless and those suffering from memory loss or mental health issues." William nodded. "And we'd like to name it after Zoe, the Zoe Thompson Foundation for Compassion and Memory Recovery." Naomi gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Zoe's eyes widened, her mouth forming a perfect O of surprise. "We'd like you both to be involved," Thomas added. "Your perspective, your compassion, they're invaluable." "Of course, we understand if it's too much." Naomi felt tears prickling at her eyes. She looked at Zoe, seeing the mix of shock and excitement on her daughter's face. "What do you think, sweetie?" she asked softly. "Would you like to help other people like you helped Thomas?" Zoe nodded vigorously, her curls bouncing. "Yes, can we, Mommy, please?" Naomi laughed, wiping away a stray tear. "Of course we can, baby, of course we can." As they began to discuss the details, Naomi felt a warmth spreading through her chest. She thought about the judgment they had faced from neighbors, the whispers and sidelong glances. None of that mattered now. Zoe's simple act of kindness had not only changed Thomas's life, but was now going to change countless others. The sun was setting as goodbyes, promises of future meetings and plans for the foundation hanging in the air between them. As Naomi and Zoe walked hand in hand back to their apartment, Zoe looked up at her mother, her face glowing in the fading light. "Mommy," she said, her voice filled with wonder, "I'm so glad I shared my sandwich." Naomi squeezed her daughter's hand, her heart overflowing with pride and love. "Me too, baby," she said softly. "Me too." As they climbed the stairs to their apartment, Naomi realized that their lives had changed out before them, filled with possibilities she had never dared to imagine, all because her daughter had seen a hungry stranger and decided to share. Inside their small apartment, as Zoe chattered about their new friends and the foundation, Naomi felt a sense of peace settle over her. She knew there would be challenges ahead, and that not everyone would understand or approve of their involvement with the Bennetts and their foundation. But she also knew with unwavering certainty that they were on the right path. Later that night, as she tucked Zoe into bed, Naomi sat on the edge of the mattress, stroking her daughter's curls. "I'm so proud of you, Zoe," she said softly. "You've shown everyone that a small act of kindness can change the world." Zoe yawned, snuggling deeper into her blankets. "I just did what you always taught me, Mommy, to be kind and help people who need it." Naomi leaned down and kissed Zoe's forehead, her heart swelling with love. "That's right, baby, and now because of you, we're going to be able to help even more people. You've started something beautiful." As Zoe drifted off to sleep with a contented smile on her face, Naomi stood in the doorway, watching her daughter. She reflected on the journey they'd been on, from that first encounter in the park to this moment of incredible possibility. She thought about Thomas, reunited with his family and regaining his memories. She thought about the Bennetts, whose lives had been transformed by Zoe's simple act of kindness. And she thought about all the people they would be able to help through the foundation, all because one little girl had seen a hungry stranger and decided to share. As she softly closed Zoe's door, Naomi felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced judgment and misunderstanding, but they had also discovered the profound impact that compassion could have. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew they would face them together, with kindness and courage. In the quiet of their small apartment, as the city settled into night outside their windows, Naomi sent up a silent prayer of gratitude for her daughter's big heart, for the unexpected friendships they had formed, and for the opportunity to make a difference in the world. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, and new opportunities to spread kindness. But for now, in this moment, Naomi savored the peace and joy that filled their home. As she prepared for bed herself, she couldn't help but smile, thinking of how a simple sandwich had set in motion a chain of events that would change not just their lives but the lives of countless others. In the darkness of her room, Naomi whispered a promise to herself and to Zoe. They would continue to face the world with open hearts and helping hands no matter what. Because now they knew, without a doubt, that even the smallest act of kindness could spark a revolution of compassion. As she drifted off to sleep, Naomi's last thoughts were of the future, bright, full of promise, and overflowing with the potential for kindness to change the world, one small act at a time. What do you think of this story? Please comment down below and like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this narrative. Until then, see you in the next video.